Coming up on this episode of the Entrepreneurial You,
unboxing experience is the only customer touch point where the conversion rate is 100%. One of the main challenges is with that direct-to-consumer brands face today is how can I profitably acquire a customer? Embracing some of the unsexy work, I think that can really create a solid foundation for scalable growth.
Hey, it's John Lee Dumas of EO Fire, and it's the Entrepreneurial You, the show for dedicated and passionate Caribbean entrepreneurs seeking daily inspiration, brought to you by author, speaker, and award-winning entrepreneur Heneka Watkis-Porter. You must be prepared to ignite.
Hello, beautiful people. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. I'm your host, Heneka Watkis-Porter, bringing you the best insights and strategies from top entrepreneurs and leaders worldwide, such as Seth Godin, Lisa Nichols, Les Brown, John Lee Dumas, Paul Martinelli, and the list goes on. Of course, you tune in to hear exclusive interviews and practical advice that you won't hear anywhere else, which is designed specifically to help you elevate your business and personal growth. This episode is brought to you by the Jamaica Stock Exchange, HenecaWatkis-Porter.com, and 5-Minute Bookkeeper. Today's guests co-founded Courageous, a full-service marketing agency specializing in helping direct-to-consumer brands grow through digital channels. As a multiple seven-figure entrepreneur and marketing advisor to renowned companies like Netflix, Capital One, Adidas, Fender Guitars, and Urban Outfitters, he brings a wealth of experience and expertise to his game. His mission: to apply industry-leading marketing strategies to up-and-coming brands that make people healthier, happier, and freer. Buckle up, fasten your seatbelts because we're in for a ride. We're getting deep into marketing and entrepreneurship. So I'm glad to welcome Jordan Frank. Welcome, Jordan.
Thank you so much. It's wonderful to be here with you today.
And I'm so happy to have you. Let's get right into it before we get to our topic, marketing, mastering marketing for direct-to-consumer brands. So if you could have any superpower to help you in your marketing endeavors, what would it be and why?
Ooh, wow. That is a wonderful question. If I could have any superpower, what would it be?
To help you in your marketing endeavors, yes.
Yeah. Well, I think the first thing that comes to mind is I can't say artificial intelligence because that already exists. So, when I think back to when I started my marketing career and some of the most successful projects and campaigns that I worked on, I think it really boiled down to the incredible team members that I worked with. And so I think to answer that question, what I'd say is if I would just find like my cohort of the top 5 marketers in the world and set up a private Slack channel with them and a weekly call, and I think I'd be set. I think I'd be able to crush whatever I was doing. So I think just access to the best people is really time and time again what it comes down to.
Awesome. And you were alluding to your start in the game of marketing. So let's share, we want to hear from you, Jordan, how you initially entered the marketing world and landed such prestigious clients. Let's hear it.
Yeah, so I had my first marketing internship when I was 20 years old, and I always found that it was a really fun blend for me in terms of mixing creativity with the data and analytical side that I think is really important to be successful. And in 2014, back when I graduated college, I was lucky enough to work for a startup over in the United Kingdom. We sold these little Wi-Fi dongles that allowed you to travel internationally without data roaming charges. This was back before you could just do it with your cell phone. And so it was like this little device that you took around. And there were 6 people at the company. And I was basically tasked with getting more customers. So I kind of had to put on my startup hat and think through how can we find 1,000, 10,000 new customers. And that's really what kicked off my experience within the industry. I really loved working for startups. And so that company ended up being really successful. We were fortunate enough to sell it in 2019. And then I started working at some digital marketing agencies here stateside. And we were lucky enough to work with some really big brands, some of which you mentioned at the beginning of the show. And throughout my career, I just kind of continue to work my way up the agency ladder. Most recently, I was at an agency called Graphite, which is based out of San Francisco, which is working with a lot of amazing Silicon Valley clients. Wonderful company, but I was kind of getting to the point where I wanted to take my skills and apply them to brands that I felt were really mission driven and mission aligned and making the world a better place. So that's kind of my story. I kind of started in the startup world, was lucky enough to have some successes there, and then made my way into the agency world where I got some access to some really big, wonderful brands.
Mm-hmm. Interesting story. So Courageous focuses on direct-to-consumer brands. So what are some of those unique challenges and opportunities these brands face that when you compare them to traditional retail brands?
Yeah, so I think the challenge with a direct-to-consumer brand, especially if you're focusing your time and resources on digital channels, is that digital marketing has just got more and more competitive. And the barrier to entry with a direct-to-consumer product, or kind of going that route via, or instead of a traditional retail route, has just gotten a lot easier. And so what that means is that acquiring customers has become a lot more expensive. And so what I would say, one of the main challenges is with that direct to consumer brands face today is how can I profitably acquire a customer? And so a lot of the strategy that we do here at Courageous and that you'll see a lot of other digital agencies or in-house practitioners orient around is how can I lower my customer acquisition cost, which is a term that basically is a fancy way of saying, how many dollars do I pay to acquire one customer? And so, marketing can feel really overwhelming for a lot of brands. There are a lot of channels like Facebook ads, email marketing, TikTok, et cetera. The list goes on. Ultimately, the success of any digital marketing program for a direct consumer brand really comes down to three KPIs or three metrics. Customer acquisition cost, how much do I pay to acquire one customer? Average order value, what's the average order size? So how much revenue do I generate from that initial order? And then lifetime value. So does that customer continue to purchase from me long term? And so basically my job and the job of any direct consumer marketing strategist is to lower that customer acquisition cost as low as possible, increase an average order value, and increase the lifetime value. So all of the challenges kind of all fall within one of those three buckets.
All right, sounds good. Sounds good. So I want to hear some of the challenges that you've had on the way. Not necessarily the challenges of the brand, but the challenges that your company faced as you were navigating the space. For those who are in the digital marketing space, that may help them quite well.
Yeah. So, I would say that most sane agency owners are not necessarily working for quote unquote mission driven brands or brands that are like out to make the world a better place. And perhaps one of the reasons for that is because these are not always the most well-funded companies. So a lot of individuals who are starting remarkable companies that are, for example, using regenerative agriculture practices or using high quality ingredients are kind of choosing to do it the hard way. Like they're choosing to really invest in like new supply chains and hire people and pay them fair wages. So typically these companies are not venture backed companies that are on an explosive growth curve. And so a lot of the brands that I work with and a lot of the brands that I like to orient to are brands that are on the slightly smaller side. So let's call them like 10 million and under per year in revenue, which is, on the smaller side, maybe 10 to 20 would be kind of our max at the moment. And in terms of like challenges of acquiring these brands as clients and servicing these brands, yeah, I would say that it's not always the type of brand that's going to cut the fattest paycheck. And so I think that's really, in the beginning at least, one of the trade-offs that I needed to kind of like look in the mirror and ask myself is, am I creating this agency so that I can go work with big corporate clients and put the fancy names up on the website? Or on a personal note, like, am I really doing this to try to use the tools and the technology that these industry giants are using and apply them to brands that are making the world a better place? And so I would say that anyone that transitions from corporate to working with smaller brands, um, it might potentially go through that process and might have to really answer that question for themselves, is like, yeah, sure, there are the financial realities of life, but ultimately, what's motivating you, and where's that motivation coming from? Is that internal, or is that external? And so that's a challenge that I had to face. I'd say anytime you're working with smaller brands that are less well funded, they're very results driven. We don't have like 6 months to prove our value. We need to execute and show results immediately. And so the only other thing I'd say is that we we work really intensely for all the brands that are on our roster, and that's one of our core values, because it's really important for those brands to see an ROI quickly. So, we like to do our due diligence and work very quickly. And so I'd say anyone who wants to work with a mission aligned brand who's on the smaller side, you better be ready to hustle. You better be ready to, pull up your sleeves and work hard, and maybe even do things that are not necessarily within your initial thoughts of what the scope of work might entail, just to get the job done.
Such as?
Yeah, we're working with some incredible brands at the moment. The brand that I always start with is Pasha. They're a 2 ingredient organic gluten-free bread. They're using regenerative agriculture practices. You can find them in Whole Foods nationwide, and that entire company is amazing. You really can't find a cleaner bread on the market if that's something that you're interested in. We're working with a brand called Imlakesh, which is a superfood company that sources all of their ingredients from indigenous tribes in South America. There's a lot of really incredible brands that we're working with at the moment, and all of that kind of have that same thing in common. We're not necessarily going to do it the easy way. We're going to really align to how can this product make the world a slightly more sustainable and a better place, and how can we make that happen through our products.
Mhm. So I mentioned earlier your mission, which is to make people happier, healthier, and freer, right?
Yeah.
Tell us, if you can, about a particular campaign which would have embodied this mission, and what were the results?
Yeah. So, you know, one area that I'd say is no secret, it's a real challenge facing our society today, is mental health, and a lot of people are struggling with anxiety and depression. And intravenous and intramuscular ketamine therapy has been proven to be incredibly effective for treating anxiety and depression. It's something that is a little bit on the fringe. It's not something that everyone's necessarily comfortable with, but it's a new kind of up and coming treatment that's showing incredible effectiveness at treating people with anxiety and depression. And one of the challenges of that being something that's a little bit fringy, a little up and coming, is that not a lot of people fully understand that story. And not a lot of people have a lot of data that is readily available to them to back their willingness to necessarily try something that's new and can seem a little bit scary. So we're working with a couple ketamine psychedelic assisted therapy clinics on the West Coast of the United States. And one of the campaigns that we ran was essentially an education campaign leveraging website and Facebook and Instagram ads to help educate people around the effectiveness of these treatments. One of the things that we did that was really effective was we basically just told their story. So we basically just told the story of the founders, why they decided to do this. We came into the office and had a shoot where we had the doctor, who's also the business owner, give us a tour of the office, show us the chairs, help introduce us to the nurse practitioners, and then just showcase what this treatment can do and why it's been so effective. And telling that story led to something like a 500% increase in leads and new clients to the practice. over just a 2-3 month span. And it was a really successful campaign for us. And that's one that I'm really proud of because it's helping people transition from a therapy that is not highly effective to one that you can do 2 to 3 times and not have to be on anxiety and depression medication for the rest of your life. So yeah, that was one that we're really proud of.
Wow, and every reason too. I mean, as somebody who has gone through the whole anxiety and depression, thing, that is great to hear. So congrats on that. We're going to take a break to hear from some of our partners, and when we come back, I want to hear from you, Jordan, about some of those strategies that you've used to scale your business. Yes, so let's take a break. And here's what people are saying about 5 Minute Bookkeeper. Or did I tell you that that earlier segment, Success Exposed, when we're still in that segment, is brought to you by 5 Minute Bookkeeper. Yeah, so let's hear from them. So people are saying about 5 Minute Bookkeeper. As a solopreneur, 5 Minute Bookkeeper is so simple that I actually stay up to date with my bookkeeping. It has saved me so much time come tax season. 10 out of 10 would be my recommendation to anyone who does their own bookkeeping. And that's from Christina. Hello. Thank you so much, Christina, on behalf of 5 Minute Bookkeeper. Find them at 5minutebookkeeper.com. That's 5, the numeral 5, minutebookkeeper.com. All right, welcome back. Welcome back. Sticking and staying with me as I speak with Jordan Frank. Jordan, I earlier hinted that I want to hear from you about some of your key strategies to scale your business over time.
Yeah. Yeah. So I would say these strategies are kind of the foundational pieces for any agency owner. And I think the way that we're looking at this right now is there's kind of 3 tiers or components that we're leveraging to help scale the agency. The one is people, right? So, we're a marketing agency. We're not selling widgets or software that we can just, replicate. We're only able to take on more clients if we have more subject matter experts who can service those clients. There's a lot of really interesting ways to hire people in 2024. There's a lot of the traditional ways, like posting a job on LinkedIn. There's a lot of incredible overseas talent and tools like Upwork, where it's really easy and efficient to hire contractors. So we're hiring people both on a project and a full-time base. The other thing that we're doing is we are leveraging a lot of processes and systems like Notion and ClickUp for different SOPs or documents that allow our team to repeat certain processes at the agency. So for example, if we're creating an ad for a client, we have like a 30-page checklist process that anyone who wants to create one of those ads can go through and essentially create like an assembly line, a repeatable process built within ClickUp so that it can be assigned to whoever is at whichever stage on that, for that specific process on the team. I think, I definitely am guilty of being the agency founder where everything lives in my brain and I don't get it out on paper. And I'm sure a lot of people can resonate with that. And so another thing, that I've done is just hire someone that oversees all operations at the company. And I think that that's been probably the most valuable hire that I've done so far. That individual is just an expert at not necessarily running a marketing agency, but building systems and processes. And then the last thing is AI, which I know is kind of a trite thing to say in 2024, but there's a lot of really interesting AI tools that we're leveraging at the moment to help scale the company, both on like the subject matter expert side. So instead of a human generating ad scripts and ad ideas based off of market research or doing that market research manually, inputting different prompts into ChatGPT and things like that. And then also in some of those tools that I mentioned, like Notion and ClickUp, there's some native AI tools that we really like and kind of everything in between. So yeah, I'd say those are kind of the 3 pillars that we're leveraging at the moment: people, processes and systems, and then AI.
Right, sounds good. And on the flip side of that, almost, what are some of those mistakes that you are seeing new entrepreneurs, or you believe new entrepreneurs make as it relates to digital marketing?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think the first thing that I would say is embracing some of the unsexy work. So some of the things that I just mentioned, like improving operations, your SOPs, building the team, I think that that can really create a solid foundation for scalable growth. I think sometimes when we jump to how to scale the business as quickly as we can, some of the wheels can fall off as we continue to grow because we're not able to effectively service clients as we continue to bring them on at a higher scale. So really embracing, hiring people and doing that effectively, building out the processes and systems and improving the operations would be one. I would say if you're not an agency, if you're running a brand, really prioritizing the customer experience. So really dedicating resources to innovating your customers' end-to-end experience. Again, orienting to some of those metrics that I described earlier, the goal is really to increase the average order value or the amount of money that your customer is incentivized to pay you for the product or service that they're buying from you. And then the lifetime value. So how long are they staying with your organization or your brand? Are they buying from you once and leaving, or do they continue to make purchases from you every month or every 6 months? Again, we live in a world where there's 500 options for buying toothpaste or a stuffed animal. And so really dedicating time to understanding and innovating on your customers' end-to-end experience, I think is tremendously valuable and important in 2024. And then I think the last thing I'd say is that storytelling is really key. So really learning how to craft and share the story behind your products and increasing the perceived value of your products. So, I think gone are the days living in the world of Amazon where everyone is competing on price. Everyone has a beautiful website in 2024, for example. We really need to learn how to craft and share the stories behind our products so that people get bought in and want to become fans of the brand. And so I think those are three areas that, that I would start with and recommend.
Mm-hmm. All right. So what you do, the work that you do, Jordan, is innately creative, right? Intrinsically. So with data-driven decisions to be made now and as part of your system, how do you balance creativity with data-driven decision making?
That's a great question. I think the really tactical answer to that is that the the data that we gather helps inform how effective we've been with our creativity. So I kind of see it as a loop where we analyze through data what our customers care about, various price points of our competitors, things of that nature, various inputs that allow us to craft a digital marketing strategy. From there, we launch various campaigns through different channels like Google pay-per-click campaigns, Facebook, Instagram campaigns, Amazon campaigns, TikTok campaigns, etc. And then the data that we gather, for example, what's our customer acquisition cost, helps tell us if we've been effective with our creativity. So it's really a mix of both. I think that's one of the really fun things about marketing is that it's certainly part science and it's also part art. Ultimately, we need to understand a couple different things. First, we need to understand who are our competitors and what do they really care about. So, are our competitors moms between the age of 30 and 60? Are they men who are really into CrossFit? Like, who are our competitors and what do they really care about? So that's number one. And then I think number two that we really need to be tuned into is what channels can effectively reach these individuals? And then how much do we need to pay within these channels in order to drive a sale on our website? And so Yeah, I'd say it's a really interesting balance, and we use the inputs from all of that audience research in order to craft the strategy and in order to ultimately let the data tell us whether or not we've been creative or if we need to go back to the drawing board.
Right. I love that answer. I love that response. All right. So we're moving into the community connection segment brought to you by 5 Minutes Bookkeeper. And in this segment, I invite you, you know that, our community, to share your reviews, your questions, your feedback, or whatever it is that you want to share with us to engage, to let us know, to let me know that I'm not here doing this alone with my guests. All right. So this week, I'm continuing to share from the Build Wealth conference just happening, which happened in August. I'm sharing some feedback I got from some of my community members there. And this week, feedback is coming from Tishauna Mullings, who I bumped into, a good friend of mine, very good friend of mine, and a listener of the Entrepreneurial You podcast. And this is what she had to say about the show.
Hi, my name is Tishauna Mullings, social development practitioner and avid listener of the Entrepreneurial You. Yes, I was a guest also some time ago, and I really think you should listen to this podcast if you're an entrepreneur that's looking for that's the playbook to find tips, strategies, tools, just everything you need to learn to grow and scale your business. And don't be stingy. Share it with everybody that you know that is an entrepreneur, and you can find it on all podcast platforms, everywhere, wherever you listen to your podcasts.
Thank you so much, Tishauna. Thank you so much. So as I continue my conversation with Jordan Frank, marketing extraordinaire, Jordan, we are pretty much on the tail end of our conversation. So let's hear your final thoughts as it relates to digital marketing, best practices. What does the future look like?
Yeah, so my take on digital marketing is that it's going to continue to get more and more competitive. So a lot of these various channels that a lot of folks are investing in, like Google pay-per-click advertising, Facebook and Instagram advertising, are going to continue to get more and more competitive, which means that it's going to cost more to acquire a customer on those channels. So if you're going to scale your company, I think you really need to fall in love with the boring work and kind of the operations that happen behind the scenes to do some of the things that I described a little bit earlier. So I think that the businesses that are really going to win in the long term are going to be the ones that invest in their product, right? So it's going to be very difficult to effectively acquire customers profitably if your product isn't great. Invest in your team, invest in your brand alongside all of the really tactical marketing optimizations. Because it's so competitive and because it's so easy for consumers to purchase goods and services online today, I think it's ever more important to prioritize your average order value, your lifetime value, and really think about that customer experience. So one example that I'll just kind of give related to one of our customers is before they started working with us, they when they ship their products to their customers, it was in a pretty unsexy, boring package. So it was basically just the product in a box. It was kind of like, table stakes, what you'd expect. One of the things that we talked about is that the unboxing experience is the only customer touch point where the conversion rate is 100%, which means that you know that every single one of your customers is going to interact with that experience when they open the box. And so they completely redesigned their packaging. They put some jokes on the box. They made it look really beautiful. Inside the box, they completely changed how the product was opened. They put some really interesting material within the box. They put a note from the founder. I'm sure we're all familiar with this. It completely changed the lifetime value of their customers. So a lot more people continued to order from the brand. It made a substantial impact in terms of brand value. People started talking about it on social media, and it was just a really low cost, low effort way to improve the customer experience. So I would say continue to invest not only in optimizing each individual channel from a performance metric standpoint, but also really think through how can I provide an amazing experience to the customer and make this person really excited about telling all their friends about my product or service.
Okay, so you've already gotten our listeners excited and they want to hear more from you. How can they reach you?
Yeah, I think the best way to reach me is either on LinkedIn. You can find me at Jordan Frank, or you can send me an email, jordan@courageoushq.com.
Jordan@courageoushq.com. I want to extend gratitude to you, Jordan Frank, for coming on and sharing with us today. We're not done yet. The show is not done yet. So let me just wrap and then we come right back. We have another segment to go, and it is called Trending Now, also brought to you by 5 Minute Bookkeeper. So, we're talking about personalized customer experiences, and that's what's trending. Trending now is the increased emphasis on personalized customer experiences. We heard Jordan mention that as well. Leveraging AI and machine learning, marketers are creating highly tailored interactions to enhance customer satisfaction and drive sales. According to HubSpot, 96% of marketers believe that personalization advances customer relationships, while 94% report it boosts conversion rates and sales, according to Coursera. This trend underscores the importance of delivering relevant, individualized content and recommendations to engage customers effectively and foster loyalty. And that's what's trending now. And so I come back to say a very big thank you again to Jordan Frank. It has been an absolute pleasure to have you on the show. Your insights, your experiences are incredibly valuable. And I know for sure that our listeners gain a ton from this conversation. I did. So thank you so much, Jordan. I appreciate you.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful to be with you today. Appreciate it.
And to you, our listeners, I know you gained so much, so much from this conversation, you know? And it's only fair that, as I love to say, sharing is caring. And the more you share the podcast, the more you leave a rating, the more you give a review, it's the more it gets eyeballs, and that's what we want for this show. We want more people to hear of the value bombs that are being dropped. Yeah, very good bombs, right? Not the one that's going to kill you, but the ones that are going to cause you to grow. So we encourage you to share it with your friend so that our community can expand. We have a community of forward-thinking entrepreneurs, and we really want to grow that. And don't miss out on actionable insights and strategies that can transform your business. So as you share it, as you grow from it, as you learn from it, others will benefit as well. Until next time, keep shining and sharing your brilliance with the world. Reach out to me at Heneka at Watkis-Porter.com. Affirm with me, please. I have the power to transform my dreams into reality, a beacon of innovation and success, radiating my unique vision into the world. Stay inspired, stay driven, and until next time, I'm Heneka Watkis-Porter signing off from the Entrepreneurial You. Of course, thanks to our sponsors, 5-Minute Bookkeeper, HenekaWatkis-Porter.com, and the Jamaica Stock Exchange. Do take care.
This podcast is heard along the Marketing Podcast Network. For more great marketing podcasts, visit marketingpodcasts.net.